What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Pick Six Podcast, CBS Sports NFL podcast. I'm Will Brinson. I'm your host, joined by John Breech and Tyler Sullivan for schedule release day. Before we dive in, I want to point out something I pointed out multiple times over the past week, that we are going to go on a bit of a break, basically until like training camp. I don't really know. So maybe, I don't know. I'm not in charge around here. I just do what I'm told. Maybe shoot for a couple of weeks. We'll see how it goes. Don't expect anything in the month of June unless something big happens. And that does not include any life events for John Breech outside of the NFL schedule. What's up, buddies, guys? How we doing?
Fantastic, Brinson. Yeah, this is Christmas, man. The schedule's out. This is a great way to go on hiatus. Is hit a home run here.
I mean,
I don't like the word hiatus.
Hiatus. Well, it is what it is. It's a summer vacation.
That's fine. I don't care. Like, it's not like I get to stop writing. It's not like I'm taking a vacation.
I guess that's true, right? Only Breech is the only one taking some time off. We're sitting here holding down the fort, Will. That's what's going on.
That's right.
I'm a diva, as we all know, and I demanded that when I go on paternity leave, there cannot be a podcast. And clearly everyone got the message, right?
I will say that if you got any questions, you can hit us up on Twitter. I'm not sure how many answers, but whatever. I don't really care. I like time off. There's not a lot of NFL stuff going on. Breech is going to be gone. I'm taking weeks. Harry's taking weeks. Sully's probably going to take some vacation. And I would point out, Breech, by the way, I said this before you got here. This is your Christmas. I mean, I wrote the top 10 revenge games. We'll get to those in a minute, but some of the biggest resources I had were I need to look for this to see what has been leaked out, so I can see if I want to include that in my article. And it's like 99% of the things that I found on the internet were from you. Like it was like a John Breech-a-palooza, finding out information on the internet for schedule release day. We have the full schedule now, so let's dive into it. And we'll start with the best game on the schedule. And I'll go first because I actually put mine in the rundown. And you guys did not. That's the last rundown for a while. Who cares?
I think that is the first time you've put something in the rundown and we haven't.
I know. That can apply.
World. What a way
I just wrote it in there so I could take this. Dude, give me the hardball. It's actually included as one of my top revenge games. I put the hardball at number 3, Chargers at Ravens or Ravens at Chargers? I actually wrote it wrong in the document. I think it's Chargers at Ravens, right?
It's Ravens at Chargers.
Ravens at Chargers, my bad. Week 12. Yes, on Monday Night Football. Ooh, that means that's a great setting out there in California for Monday Night Football. Look, if you've been following the NFL for a long time, you know that Jim Harbaugh and John Harbaugh are brothers. They have played twice before. Jim has never beaten John. And this would be the people who are like, well, it's a revenge game. They're brothers. They love each other. Well, one, I would say, we'll get to more revenge games, but one, this is why it's a game of the year. Jack Harbaugh, their father, when trying to deal with fights when they were kids, used to be like, go outside and whoever comes back in wins, which is what Bob Brinson did to me and Charlie. So I guess I appreciate it. And they used to, they'd ride back with no air conditioning in the car from like school and football practice. Who's got it better than us? Jim just won the national championship with Michigan, but he's never beaten John at the NFL level. And he lost the Super Bowl to John. And now he's like, hey, Dad, check out the championship ring I got. And John's like, that's cool. I got a Super Bowl ring. And that just means more. So like this to me is one of the best games of the year. I love the Harbaugh family. I love the Harbaugh brothers. I love the Harbaugh. And I think that this qualifies as just a multi-layered revenge game because I know if I played my brother in an NFL, if I coached against my brother in an NFL game, it would be no holds barred, every trick play in the books, take this guy out.
I mean, I know that we talked about Harbaugh jumping on with the Chargers because it's such an attractive landing spot because there's Justin Herbert there. But I half wonder if he looked at their opponents for 2024 and he goes, you know what? I'm going to come back this year because I know I'm playing my brother. I need to get this win. I mean, it is speaking as the older brother in a sibling rivalry. Same. This is what we play for. This is why we play the game. You want to beat your younger brother or your brother.
You can't let your younger brother beat you. Right.
Absolutely. You cannot have it. I mean, I've had so many Super Smash Bros. Wars and broken controllers over the years with my brother. This is the highest of level of sibling rivalry. I can't wait for it.
And I still can't believe they coach against each other in the Super Bowl. Like, that blows my mind. That
it's
happens.
insane.
It is. And now here we are. Obviously, I do agree with you guys that this is an attractive matchup. The Harbaughs are both crazy, although Jim is probably a little bit crazier. The man was living in an RV, for God's sake, when he moved out to LA because he didn't have a house yet. I mean, that's a classic Jim Harbaugh move. So, yeah, I definitely agree that this is a must-see game.
Jim is a lot bit crazier, by the way, than John. I mean, and they're both insane. But I would also point out, too, Jim took Jesse Minter to be his DC, who was on the Ravens staff, right? Or was he on Michigan when he brought him forward? There's all kinds of like wild. I mean, Greg Roman, who got fired by John Harbaugh, is the OC with the Chargers. You have Mike McDonald was with Michigan and then jumps to ball. Like, they swap coaches around so much that there's a lot of incestuousness with the two coaching staffs, which also breeds a little more, intensity.
And couldn't it also just be so fitting if this is the game where like J.K. Dobbins just goes off on his former
good call.
team?
Good call.
Like, we're talking obviously about the Harbaughs, and that's the story. But like, wouldn't it just be so fitting that this dude that could not stay healthy for a lick of his Ravens career just goes off for like 2 touchdowns and 100 yards against his former team?
I will be adding that into my story. I can't believe I forgot that this is a J.K. Dobbins. Gus Edwards revenge game too. I mean, against his old team. Oh,
and Greg Roman. I mean, there's a lot of ties between Baltimore and L.A. It's not just the Harbaughs.
Sully, what's your game of the year?
I'll just go chalk here because I think we should just talk about it. It's the Week 7 game, Kansas City against San Francisco.
Yep.
It's going to be a Fox game. I just, again, when you're talking about Super Bowl rematches and teams, not just the Super Bowl rematch last year, but a couple of years ago as well, these two teams have been playing against one another on the highest stakes throughout these last few seasons. It could very well be the Super Bowl preview at this season as well. So again, just Patrick Mahomes, Kyle Shanahan, Andy Reid in prime time, not prime time, but probably the standalone game in that late window. I just can't get over that. I think it's going to be awesome.
I think one thing that's crazy about that game, besides that it's a Super Bowl rematch, so it's obviously must-see television, is that Tom Brady is probably going to be the announcer. He's the number one Fox broadcaster, and I'm sure the Super Bowl rematch is going to be getting the number one team. And Brady grew up in the Bay Area. He's one of only 2 quarterbacks who's ever beaten Mahomes in the postseason. So you have like this very unique tie. And let's not forget the 49ers tried to recruit Brady to play for them just last year. I mean, this just happened. So, I mean, it's all a little, I think that adds a little bit of spice to this. So not only do you have this game, which is must see, but the fact that Brady will be the color analyst there definitely adds some spice to it.
I also like the timing of it as well. I mean, we're talking about Week 7, and I think one of the big storylines for Kansas City throughout the year is how is this new wide receiver group going to mesh with Patrick Mahomes, Xavier Worthy, Hollywood Brown. That is for 6 weeks is a nice little window to start really humming. And if again, if we're duking it out in a Super Bowl rematch, I want Patrick Mahomes to be firing on all cylinders and in good sync with his wide receivers. I think that's a perfect amount of time.
Yeah, and look, I mean, Bengals, Ravens, and 49ers in the first 7 weeks of the season for the Chiefs. Now, I think I heard Dan Orlovsky saying, everybody be careful that Week 5 buys. And most times, I think everybody else needs to be a little more careful than the Chiefs themselves. But I agree, this is a great game. The Brady thing is interesting too, Week 7, because like we'll probably know if he's any good by Week 7 or not. And it's like, what if it's this awkward scene where Brady's fumbling through stuff? Because we've talked about that. We don't know if it'll be good or not. Just another layer to it. But yeah, that was the number one game, by the way, on my revenge list too. It's Super Bowl revenge. You saw with the Eagles. They got up for the Chiefs game last year and of course, won it. Breech, what is your number one game of the year?
I really couldn't decide on just one. So I'm going to pick one that I actually thought Brinson was going to pick if the Harbaugh didn't exist. And
is this a Week 1 Sunday Night Football?
Sunday night, Week 1, Matthew Stafford going back to Detroit. That game, the playoff game between those two teams was bonkers. I mean, that was just back and forth. One of the most exciting games of the entire postseason. And for the NFL to turn around and put this game in Week 1 on Sunday night, you have Matthew Stafford going back to Detroit for the second time in 9 months. I just think that's a fascinating dynamic, and that's probably the game I'm most excited about in week one, even though there's a lot of good games in week one. I think seeing Stafford face the Lions and Goff face the Rams for that matter, especially with Goff getting his new extension.
Yes,
and
that's what I was going to say too,
Stafford
right?
complaining that, hey, look, I want some guaranteed money in the contract, and the Rams are like, we'll see about that. So Goff getting paid, Stafford maybe not getting paid, I think adds an interesting element to that game.
I'm 100% with you, Breech. I'm super excited for this game. My only gripe with it, and you say that it's great to see it right out of the gate in week one, get it right back after obviously they eliminated the Rams in the playoffs. I really wanted this game on Thanksgiving. I wanted it so bad. I would have loved to have Stafford in Detroit with my turkey. I thought that would have been just the cherry on top of a Thanksgiving Day slate. Obviously, they decided to go out of the gate in week one, which is totally fine. The only gripe I have is that I wish it was on Thanksgiving.
Well, and I think you could actually make the same gripe for the Harbaugh. Like, you could have tossed the Harbaugh and Stafford versus Goff on Thanksgiving and just like, and then you feel bad because CBS has the Lions game early against the Bears on Thanksgiving. We'll talk about these in a minute. And then, you could have put NBC would have had that. Like, Fox would have had a Cowboys game. I mean, anybody against the Cowboys that late in the year would have been an incredible Thanksgiving. But nevertheless, still good games. And of course, we've already touched, by the way, on so. I mean, I think this speaks well to my theory that revenge games are real. Number one, number 3, and number 5. The games that we picked for games of the year were the 3 of the top 5 games on my 10 revenge list or 10 revenge games list that is up on CBSSports.com right now. Let's take a break and talk about the rest of them next.
PGA Championship on the Range tees off Thursday on CBS Sports Network.
You know how I feel about anybody that listens to this podcast or has ever listened to this podcast knows how I feel about revenge games. They are my favorite thing in the entire world. I get really, there's not much. I mean, it takes a lot for me to get really disappointed in myself. But when somebody points out, like Sully's like, oh, it's a J.K. Dobbins revenge game. I'm like, how did I miss that? I've drafted J.K. Dobbins in best ball 5 billion times. It's a J.K. Dobbins revenge game. I missed it. Makes me mad. However, we still have 2 more games in my top 5. One of them is not Kirk Cousins, although I have Kirk Cousins in multiple revenge games. The number 2 revenge game, and I'm curious what you guys think about this, that I have. And it's not for the fact that Chiefs and 49ers is a Super Bowl rematch, which it's hard to get bigger than the Super Bowl revenge. Especially when there's like Super Bowl overtime revenge and you've lost to that team in the Super Bowl twice in the last 5 years. Number 2 for me, and this is so easy, is the Steelers at the Broncos, week 2, 4:25 p.m. on CBS. I better see Nance, Romo, and Wolfson on that call because this is Russell Wilson against the team that's paying him $85 million to not play for him, Sully, and maybe the most vengeful coach we've seen in the last 20 years in Sean Payton.
Yeah, and I think this is hilarious for 2 different reasons because one, you're going to talk about it as a straight football game. You know, it's going to be Sean Payton trying to take down Russell Wilson. There's also a world where this happens and Russell Wilson's on the bench. And we're getting these sad looks of Russell Wilson in the big hood, big coat or whatever he's going to be wearing on the sideline. And Justin Fields is the starting quarterback for the Pittsburgh Steelers. And that almost would be further proving Sean Payton right to say, hey, listen, this is not our guy. We need to get rid of him. We could talk about Bo Nix and all of that type of stuff and whether or not he is their future, their franchise. But certainly Russell Wilson wasn't it. And if all of a sudden he's on the bench for this game or cut, that is hilarious.
Yeah, I think the NFL was actually thinking here, let's put him in week 2 just in case Russell Wilson gets benched, because you look at Justin Fields has actually been in this exact situation in 2021. The Bears signed Andy Dalton to, in the Russell Wilson role. The Bears were playing the Bengals in week 2. And it was like, well, what if Justin Fields is a starter by then? Then it loses some spice. Well, guess what? That was Andy Dalton's last start. And then it was all over, then Justin Fields takes over. So I do think that this game was early that, Mike Tomlin sees this on the schedule. I'm sure Mike Tomlin knows how Russell Wilson feels about facing Sean Payton, facing the Broncos. And all we're going to hear about all week is that, these guys get their weekly paychecks. Russell Wilson's going to make like $80,000 from the Steelers for this game, and he's going to make like $3 million from the Broncos. It's going to be some preposterous number that the Broncos are paying him for one game. So yeah, I think that Wilson will absolutely be starting, and it's a great pick as high up on your list, Brinson.
Yeah, well, and here's the thing too. I think about the type of coach that Sean Payton is, and all the times that he would play the Atlanta Falcons, and how aggressively he would pursue him. There's a shot. There's a gif out there of him mouthing "choke" and like grabbing his throat and just like screaming at, I think it was Devonta Freeman, maybe. No, yeah, it was Devonta Freeman, not Devonta Foreman. Sorry. Like screaming at him because he fumbled the ball late in the game, middle of the season divisional rivalry. Sean Payton takes this stuff personally. I think he would love nothing more than, and here's the real, like, just revenge possibility. There we go. There's Sean Payton screaming "choke." It's like 17-10, 12 to go. What are you doing down there? I think it was actually a Thanksgiving game because it's NBC and NFL Network. Anywho, what if Sean Payton and this defense, this Broncos defense, got after Russell Wilson so bad that he gets benched middle of the game for Justin Fields? Like, can you imagine? And Sean Payton's just over there just like dancing. And then the Bo Nix factor is real too. If Bo Nix outplays Russell Wilson in this week 2 game as a rookie, taking 12th overall, even with all these starts, if he looks better than Russell Wilson, Sean Payton is vindicated for that pick for a pretty hot stretch, just based on that week 2 game.
The one thing I'll say about that is that, look, there's a reason Mike Tomlin has never had a losing record. The man plays 4D chess. If he has to go in there and let Najee Harris and Jaylen Warren run the ball 40 times, Russell Wilson throws it 15 times, and it doesn't matter if it's outperformed, because Tomlin will be like, that was just the game plan. The standard's the standard. And then the Steelers win, say, 24-17. You can't really, you can't hate on Wilson. Wilson won't get made fun of as long as the Steelers win, and it doesn't matter what his numbers are. So I just think they'll go in there with some game plan where Russell Wilson cannot look bad, and Tom will be like, we have a more talented team. We should. Right. We're going to keep it simple.
You're right, because there's a world where Bo Nix is the starter, and what is he supposed to do? Succeed against TJ Watt and Patrick Queen and that entire defense? That is a tall task to do, independent of Sean Payton and Russell Wilson. So there is a world where Russell Wilson's not doing too much, but Sean Payton's still salty on the sidelines because his team's down.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, there's a lot of, and these guys went back and forth at each other all offseason, passive aggressively. There's going to be a lead up the week of it. I mean, Sean Payton ain't afraid to throw a bar, but it should be fun. So the other one that made my top 5, and this is honestly because, one, we have history of this player having a revenge game. Stephon Diggs, I believe, went off. They actually lost the game against the Vikings in this crazy game where Josh Allen fumbled at the 1, and then it was a wild game. But he had 12 catches for 128 yards in that 3-point loss. And to me, there is nothing better than the wide receiver revenge game. Now, the 2 other honorable mentions I had on the list were Aaron Jones at the Packers in week 4, and then Saquon at the Giants in week 7. I try not to put divisional matchups in here because I think it requires a certain type of detest. You hate the team anyway. So it requires a certain spurning, Favre against the Packers, et cetera. Now, I think both of those qualify as an honorable mention, but Diggs has burned an old team before, and there's definitely beef with the Bills here. I think the Texans and the Bills, week 9, 1 p.m., CBS, Bills at Texans, technically. I like the Stephon Diggs revenge game. Would have slotted it higher, just happened to really like some of the other items at 1 through 3.
He will 100% be the highest owned player in DFS. He will 100% have a receiving yards ladder bet on him. We're going to get the FanDuel and the DraftKings tweets of Stephon Diggs, 100+ receiving yards, has 80% of the handle and 80% of the money. We're going to get all of that stuff because we all know that he is going to go off in this game. just no matter what, if his team is winning or losing, he is saying, give me the football. I am trying to go off and absolutely spurn this team. And it's very similar to what you were saying with Sean Payton and Russell Wilson. Stephon Diggs has thrown so much shade at Josh Allen in the Bills organization over the last 2 years. This was a long time coming. It's something that we talked about this offseason where it didn't feel like they fully cushioned the blow of losing Stephon Diggs in their offense. Obviously got Keon Coleman at the draft, but it felt like they could do more with something that was such a looming departure over the last couple of years. And for it to come to a head, I think that Diggs is going to circle this one on the calendar.
Yeah, one thing that's weird about this game is I was surprised it did not get put in prime time. It's Josh Allen versus CJ Stroud. You obviously have this huge revenge factor, and both these teams were kind of primetime popular. And there you have is just sitting at 1 p.m. on a random Sunday, and it didn't make the cut. So I did think that it was a little odd that they didn't think this game was big enough to be put in a spot like that. But instead, it is week 5, and we will happily take it on CBS. Thank you, NFL schedule makers.
Is it week 5 or week 9? Did I read? I was flying to find the schedules.
Week 5, definitely.
You're right. It's week 5.
CBS.
Yep, definitely got to. I knew it was. I just read that wrong. Nice shot. Oh, you know what? You know what the problem is? I went to. I should have gone to the Bills and double checked. I went to the Texans website. They don't have the list of the games scheduled. They have it tiered out with no mention of what week it is. Oh, it wasn't gone. Oh, it probably went. Oh, that's why I was reading left to right instead of.
Some of these teams are doing it really weird. It
was a link to click on tickets and stuff. Just to try and clarify this, we have, you know what? I don't know what the logic here is, because the 4:00 games that week there's 2 on Fox, Raiders at Broncos and Cardinals at Niners. Then we have Packers at Rams. I guess is that the Nats game? And then Giants at Seahawks. That's weird. I would think that would be a game they'd want to.
It's weird that it's at 1.
Yeah, I'm surprised they didn't toss that at 4:25. It's sort of the game of the week. But I mean, Packers at Rams, you could argue is coin toss on which game is better. Hopefully that's a national CBS day, and we get back-to-back bangers in terms of those games. But shame on the Texans for the way that they set up their schedule. That is terrible. Any teams that do that, you're bad, very bad. Okay. Any other anything strike your fancy? Here, the rest of them. 6, Raiders at Saints, Derek Carr, Dennis Allen. It's week 17, and I just think there's a chance that Spencer Rattler is playing for a different coach, and it's really awkward because neither Dennis Allen or Derek Carr are there. I'm just saying, Derek Carr might not suit up because he doesn't want to play against his old team. Falcons and Vikings, Kirk Cousins returns home. Also have that's it. Ravens at Chiefs at 8, Steelers at Falcons. That's Arthur Smith revenge game, plus Russell Wilson and Kirk Cousins. Revenge from the 2011 Big Ten championship game. And then number 10, this is a sneaky one. Jets at Niners, week 1, Monday Night Football. Not only do you get Aaron Rodgers, revenge game against his Achilles tendon, revenge game against Monday Night Football, revenge game against week 1, 2023. You also get Aaron Rodgers against a team that passed on him first overall way back in the day. And I don't care how well you did without the Niners. He thought he was going to go from Cal to the 49ers, and he sat in that draft room for a long time. I think there's a little bit of sneaky spice in that game. Any thoughts on those other revenge games?
Yeah, I think the one that I was going to mention, because I didn't know if you were going to put it on there, was the Falcons and Steelers game in week 1. I love that game. I think that is hilarious because, and I'm doing the week 1 odds story for the site that should be up soon. And I wrote in there, wouldn't it just be hilarious if Pittsburgh somehow airs it out? It just after all this time, Arthur Smith's obviously the offensive coordinator now and was the head coach of the Falcons, and all they did was run the ball with Tyler Algier and not even Bijan Robinson. Could it be hilarious if all of a sudden this just turns into a air it out offense that lights up the Atlanta Falcons secondary? I just find that to be hilarious. I don't think that's likely, but boy, that would be funny.
Cordarrelle Patterson revenge game too, technically.
Ooh, there you go.
Yeah.
That would absolutely be amazing. And you know what else? Brinson, did you mention Sean Payton returning to New Orleans?
I don't think I had that one in there somehow.
Yeah, I think that's a good one. That's a Thursday night game in week 7. I feel like that's another one where Peyton is just going to embarrass the Saints to the point where, he left on his own accord. It wasn't like they fired him, but just one of those where, man, you guys have just fallen off the face of the earth since I left this team. Nobody knows what they're doing anymore. And you shouldn't have traded me away. You should have just let me sit in retirement. Thanks for nothing, or thanks for everything, I guess.
No, he wanted to come back. The one thing about that where I do agree, and I thought about it earlier in the week and then sort of forgot about it just because, the Saints, the Broncos lost draft picks because of that. They fired Pete Carmichael this offseason. That's like Sean Payton's guy, and I don't know. He wants to get revenge on Dennis Allen. I just think I agree with you. I probably should have included it. What's the bigger passive revenge here? Cousins returning to the Vikings. I mean, it's not like they were like, get lost, Kirk. He didn't want to sign with them. Or Sean Payton returning to the Saints.
I almost think that the fact that the Falcons drafted Michael Penix kind of takes the wind out of the sails of that. Like, oh, you were trying to bring in the young guy and, you wanted to get rid of me. Okay, well, the team that you just signed with did the same thing. So I don't know. It kind of takes the wind out of sails of that one for me.
Yeah, okay. I don't feel like Kirk Cousins wants revenge. He wants revenge on the Falcons. He wants to play for the Vikings so he can beat Atlanta. He's not worried about beating the Vikings. I think Sean Payton would love to beat the Saints, though, even though there wasn't a bitter exit or anything.
Yeah, I do like to avoid inter-division games. Otherwise, I do think, Aaron Jones coming back, he's going to try and kill them. And Saquon Barkley coming back to New York. The way Saquon has been treated this offseason is wild. He keeps me like, why are you guys dragging me? I didn't do anything wrong. I would have taken the Giants' money. You didn't want me. I left. Sorry for taking all the money from Philly. And he goes to a Flyers game or a Sixers game, and he's getting just killed for it. It's pretty funny. All right. Let's take another break. And when we come back, we will discuss holiday games, international games, bye weeks, toughest stretches, flex games, and best team videos on social media. Obviously, it's the Titans or the Chargers again. Next.
The PBR World Finals continue Saturday on CBS Sports Network. Time to get up now.
So the holiday games, we mentioned Thanksgiving. What gets your turkey? What gets your turkey cooking the most on Thanksgiving? Bears versus Lions, Bears at Lions, Giants at Cowboys, or Dolphins at Packers. Breech.
I feel like I don't even know. These games, it feels like they know everyone's going to watch no matter what. And so it's, Giants, Cowboys. Do I really want to watch the Giants offense? I feel like that could have been a sexier game. Bears, Lions is nice. I think seeing Caleb Williams, giving him a national window will be nice. So I'll absolutely be watching that game. So I'll put Dolphins, Packers at top, but I'm a little worried that, this is late November in Green Bay. If it's 20 degrees, do we even need to watch this game? It's not like the Dolphins can win when it's cold out. So I'm not
Harry catching heat on the way out.
Harry's watched this team. He knows what happens when they play in cold weather. They disappear. But I would say Dolphins, Packers definitely seems like the best one of these three.
Yeah, and you know what? I think if this answers the question, Breech, that, I was saying earlier how I wish that it was the Rams-Lions for the Thanksgiving Day game, but that's going to stand alone on its own. You can kind of, everybody's going to be watching these games, so it doesn't necessarily matter. I actually am looking forward, though, to the Caleb Williams Detroit Lions game. Like I'm
on CBS.
On CBS, company man here. And so but I am fascinated to see Caleb Williams go up against these division opponents. And, this is another thing too, I wanted to mention now that we're talking about it, Caleb Williams, him going up against the Packers is a sneaky revenge just for the franchise type of game. Like, can you exercise the demons of all these past quarterbacks owning this franchise? Can you restake ownership of the Chicago Bears? And so I think that even applies to the Detroit Lions as well. If he can come in and start establishing himself as the quarterback in the AFC North and in the NFC North, I think that Thanksgiving would be a hell of a stage to do it.
Well, let's not forget speaking of stages in Detroit, he was drafted in Detroit as the number 1 overall pick, and they booed the hell out of him. And so now he goes back to Detroit for the first time since being drafted number 1 overall there. And obviously wasn't inside Ford Field or anything like that. But I mean, I don't know. I think that's a great game if the Bears are decent. If the Bears are bad, it could get ugly because the Lions really do look like a team that has solidified themselves. And it's now. It used to be, oh sweet, we get the Lions on Thanksgiving, we get to roll in and trounce them. Now that's a really, really tough game. I'd love to be the third guy here to make an argument for the Giants and the Cowboys. It's hard. I'm going to try to do it. I'm going to use 2 words: Drew Lock. Like what if Drew Lock is starting then, and the Giants are kind of good, and Brian Dable's got Drew Lock cooking. Malik Neighbors is that defensive line is a problem, especially against a Cowboys offensive line that's sort of revamped a bit. I think you can make the case that the Giants could be good-ish when they get there.
And just to piggyback off of that and build on it, Last Supper, Mike McCarthy is a drumstick. I mean, you lose to the New York Giants on Thanksgiving. Jerry Jones, you get that, he's going to be all smug in the owner's box, and the zoom in on him. That is the type of stage, and that is the type of setting that gets you fired.
You see Jerry texting in the box, "Get my lawyer. Make sure the I's are dotted, the T's are crossed, because we're firing Mike."
I like that. I think I like that. That Jerry Jones impersonation. I'm trying to see what the Cowboys buys in week 7. They have this is interesting. So they're at Cleveland to open, New Orleans, Baltimore, both of those at home, at the Giants on Thursday night on Amazon Prime, at Steelers on Sunday night versus the Lions, bye at San Francisco, at Atlanta versus Philly versus Houston, at Washington, then the Thanksgiving game against the Giants, and then Cincinnati a week later. If they were, that's not an easy schedule.
No. Like
it could be one where it's like you've got a really bad record going in, even that's a possibility.
What were the 2 games leading up to the Washington game before Thanksgiving?
It was. I just closed it. Sorry.
Texans in week 11 and the Eagles in week 10.
Right, 2 very losable games. It's not easy
at home.
And if all of a sudden you have Dan Quinn beat you.
Wait, hold on. Let me just coming out of their week 7 bye. Week 7 bye. They play the 49ers in week 8. Play the Falcons in week 9, who could just maybe they're okay. Eagles in week 10, Texans in week 11, and then Commanders week 12, Giants week 13.
That's what I'm saying. You lose. I mean, that's a tough stretch. And then if you lose to Dan Quinn, and then you have an embarrassing loss to the Giants on Thanksgiving, I don't know. That could be. That's a
good point. It's a good point. Okay. Black Friday, Chiefs, Raiders, and then we have is that Chiefs at Raiders or Chiefs?
It's at Arrowhead.
Okay, Raiders and Chiefs. All right. So Raiders and Chiefs. The Raiders beat the Chiefs on Christmas last year. That's a game where the Raiders may be desperate. Chiefs may need to win that one. It's a good game. It's potentially not a great game if the Chiefs are rolling and the Raiders are bad. But we saw it with the Jets and Dolphins. It doesn't matter. If you put a divisional game on Black Friday on Amazon Prime, even if the spread's huge and the game is a blowout, people are going to watch. Then Christmas Day, we get the Chiefs at the Steelers and Ravens at the Texans. Did I get that right?
You did.
I believe. Yes. I go back and forth on this. There's been a lot of articles about how it's too expensive to watch the NFL now, and it is. It's kind of ridiculous. It was kind of nice when you got every game on cable, and if you got all the games on cable, and if you wanted to watch every game, you could buy a Sunday ticket. And now you really do have to have a lot of services. I do think that the majority of the people who are in the demographic for the NFL's fan base probably have Netflix and Amazon Prime. Does that seem fair?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. I mean, obviously not everybody has those things, but I think, several 100 million people at least, or billions, have Prime and Netflix. And I think in a very weird and bizarre way, those have almost, for a lot of people across the world, those have become sort of like household expenses, right? I mean,
yeah. Like, I think that those are much more commonplace than, like, say, Peacock. I think that was a little bit more of a, wait, where is it? How do I buy that? As opposed to, oh, I already have Netflix on my Roku. Let me just click it.
Worth noting that the NFL put the playoff game featuring the Chiefs on Peacock, Chiefs and Dolphins. You therefore attract automatically some Taylor Swift fans who really want to watch the Chiefs, apparently. And the Chiefs are on both of these games on Netflix and on Amazon Prime. Don't know if that's a coincidence or just something that the NFL accidentally put together to try and boost Netflix and Amazon Prime sales as they crank up revenues. All right, international games, unless you have anything on the holiday games, Breech.
Well, I'll just say that it's crazy that the Chiefs are playing on Christmas again. The Ravens are playing on Christmas again. If you are, a member of the family or married to someone on the coaching staff, or just you're missing 2 Christmases in a row. They both played on Christmas in 2023. The Chiefs playing the Steelers, obviously, as you mentioned. I also think it's crazy the Chiefs are playing a Wednesday game, a Friday game, and playing literally on every day of the week except for Tuesday. So they have 10 Sunday games, 2 Monday games, and then a Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, all 1 game each. And they could end up playing another Saturday game if they get flexed to Saturday in week 18. So very interesting. And I think that is proof by putting the Chiefs on every day of the week. That kind of shows you that the NFL is putting them in spots where they want everyone to follow them around. They know the Chiefs are must-see TV, and that people are going to figure out how to watch the Chiefs. The Chiefs are playing, people are going to watch. And then one other thing, you mentioned all of the ways and all of the services you have to pay for to watch NFL games. ESPN Plus also has 1 game this year, and it kicks off at 9 p.m. Eastern time. It is the latest kickoff. And back in the day, Monday Night Football used to kick off at 9:15, and they kept progressively moving it back until it got to where it is now, I think at 8:15. But nope, there is a 9 p.m. game in week 7, Chargers at Cardinals. It is on ESPN Plus.
Don't love that. Don't love that.
What's the Friday night? Let's roll out in the international games. The first one on the schedule is week 1, Packers at Eagles. Packers at Eagles. It is at the
technically yes, you're correct.
Yeah. Packers at Eagles, and I'm not going to give Harry. I figured out how Harry designated these in the rundown, so my bad for not realizing that sooner. But technically, Packers at Eagles, and is that on Peacock? Am I right?
Yes.
I mean, out of the gate, you're demanding a Peacock subscription for week 1 to watch a Brazil football game on Friday night. I think this is a really interesting litmus test for. So we put a playoff game on Peacock. It's one thing with Patrick Mahomes and the Super Bowl champions. 2, Tyreek. It's a Tyreek revenge playoff game. First time back in Arrowhead since a trade. Taylor Swift again involved. Travis Kelce. This is a different beast. Packers and Eagles, very good football game. Huge game for NFC purposes. What happens? I'm curious to see how this sort of affects the bottom line, Sully, with the Peacock subscriptions.
Yeah, no, I think it's by design too, because I think that the NFL got a pretty good the NFL and Peacock got a pretty good bump from that playoff game, and I think this is one of those things like, hey, let's make sure that they remember that they have this, and it's still good for the NFL season. I think that they're kind of very quickly passing the baton from 2023 to 2024 to make sure that subscriber base doesn't leave.
And the other part is that this is a low-risk move. It's a Friday night game. You don't expect high ratings on a Friday night. It's the lowest rated TV night on the schedule. And so it feels like they're thinking, we're putting in this game Brazil. Let's see what happens in Brazil. This game doesn't need to be everywhere. It's fine being on Peacock. It doesn't need to be on big NBC. And the NFL just probably wondering, hey, are these Friday night games going to work? Is this something we want to do in the future? And not a lot of risk involved, because it's definitely is the opposite of what Peacock got in January, which was a playoff game that you knew Peacock drove so many subscriptions for that January playoff game. And now you have a Friday night game in Brazil where, people who are watching that playoff game might not be watching this game. So you're not going to get as many viewers, but I don't know if the NFL, it's going to be as big of a deal just because it's on Friday and you're not expecting as many.
That's a great point. London games. We have week 5, Jets at Vikings. Week 6, Jaguars at Bears. And then the Jaguars drive like 5 minutes to host the Patriots the following week. Patriots at Jaguars in week 7. Let's go ahead and remember the Jags beat the Bills last week when they'd been there for 2 weeks. Let's see how the Patriots roll over there, Sully, because if the Patriots, you roll over there like on a Wednesday and the Jags have been there for 2 weeks, a decent chance the Jaguars smoke the Patriots in that game, especially given that the Patriots don't look like a very good football team.
I was going to say, there's a decent chance the Patriots get smoked pretty much every week. I mean, aside, the more 1 p.m. games I've seen in quite a while up here in New England. So, shows you where this organization is going. But it'll be interesting to see how, Gerard Mayo, Drake May handle the international stage. Sure, I guess that's totally fine. Again, I'm excited to see Caleb Williams on a
9:30 a.m. Caleb Williams or Trevor Lawrence is fun.
Right. It's not prime time, but you know what I mean? It's a standalone game. I think that would be fun as well.
I love the NFL just shipping rookie quarterbacks over to London.
It's true, right?
Drake May.
Hey, Breech, do you think it's interesting? Like, we have the 2 Jaguars games obviously, but I'm like the Jaguars just announced this new stadium. And I don't know. I think that aspect of the Jaguars continuing to have those 2 games is interesting. Mostly I want to hear you say Jaguars a bunch.
Well, I'm only going to say Jacksonville just to spite you in the face, Brinson. But my understanding, reading about the Jags' new stadium situation, is that they're either going to play in Orlando or Gainesville. So I don't think it's going to mean more games in London, I guess. So obviously they're playing 2 this year. 1 is the road team. If they have a 9-game home season, which the AFC has every other year, I guess there is a slot where they could play 3 home games in London. But yeah, this is just one of those situations where I think it's, Jacksonville fans probably don't love that their team is being shipped off there. But I don't think it's the worst thing, because if you're going to go to London, you don't want to go there for a weekend. You could go there for like 9 days, leave on a Saturday, come back the following Monday and go to 2 games. I mean, that's a trip. That's a vacation. So I don't think I would hate this if I was a fan of a team that was getting sent over there for 2 games. And obviously it worked out, as you mentioned, Brinson, last season. They beat the Falcons, and then they upset the Bills because the Bills flew in Friday and had no idea what time it was on their body and just looked like they were still sleepwalking through the entire first 3 quarters.
And I'll tell you that, and I'll tell you this really quickly about the international game in Germany, the Giants and Panthers. Not the sexiest of
you're ruining. I was gonna add a set. I was gonna say in week 10, not many people are gonna be saying Dankeschön for this Giants at Panthers game, which is just like, the absolute. If you were picking games on the NFL schedule for 2024 that you'd want to see, we did like our top 3 games. This is a bottom 10 game on the entire schedule, right, Sully?
100%. And so what I was getting at was we did this thing yesterday where it was one wish that all these teams could have for the schedule release. My wish for the Panthers was to have the New York Giants face them in their international game just to get a win.
Nice.
And Kevin Steimel, our editor, was like, "Thanks, Sully," who's a big Giants fan. He's like, "Thanks, Sully."
Yeah.
Is what it is.
Well, how do you feel if you're a fan in Germany, though? Last year, 2023, you got Dolphins Chiefs. You're thinking, my God, I love the NFL. I'm going to go to every single game they throw out here. And then it's like the NFL was like, whoa, we gave them too good of a game.
Did they have Tom Brady before that? Or did they have like a Tom Brady game?
Yeah, I think you're right.
So this is the NFL's revenge game. They're like, all right, you guys got some good games. Now you need to suffer like some of the fans over here in the U.S.
Was it the German crowds were good, right? It's just like the Roger Goodell being like, I'm scared to like say a word in German other than Dankeschön because I don't know what the hell it means. But is it like, I mean, I would think that they want to reward this. It does feel like, and you see these guys like Henry Hodgson, who works for the NFL, and then Neil, I'm forgetting his name, works for like the BBC or Sky Sports. These guys are tweeting about it, and these international guys, I think to us, and this is classic American, Americanism, or like, I don't know what you would frame it as, but we tend to, you're shipping our teams over there for 2 weeks. It does feel like, from the viewpoint of the people who are involved in the production and everything internationally, that this is like the growth of the game worldwide is as big as it's been. And you watch these games, and the crowds are big, and people are pumped for them. And I think it's really tough on NFL teams and the scheduling and all of that stuff. But certainly in this modern age of luxury travel, it's a lot easier than it ever could have been before. And it's hard to, the NFL expands the schedule, the NFL expands globally, and they keep printing money, and it's hard to argue with it if you were going from a strictly business perspective.
And I'll tell you this, I mean, we're talking about, it was, Tyreek Hill versus the Chiefs in Germany. There was also a Patriots-Colts game that was completely sold out. You couldn't even try to find a ticket. So, like, as much as we're saying, like, Giants, Panthers, really, it's going to be one of the premier sports events in that entire country that season.
And then there's not going to be any NFL fans left, because they're all going to give up on the sport after having this forced down their throat. Well,
we did point out the Giants could be decent heading to the Cowboys on Thanksgiving, and Bryce Young came. I did, but I mean, it's May, baby. I'm optimistic. I can be a little pessimistic though, especially if I'm a Steelers fan, Breech, because what is happening to the Steelers around Christmas?
The Steelers, look, there's no one. I do not want to have any empathy for the Steelers. We all know I am a Bengals homer. But I think we can safely say the Steelers might have been dealt the worst schedule of any team in the NFL. What they're facing on the back end, really once December starts, or not even December, into November, it is just an ugly, ugly schedule. I mean, obviously, we mentioned the fact that, look, starting in week 15, they play 3 games in 10 days. And those 10, they play the Eagles on December 15th, the Ravens on December 21st, and then the Chiefs in that weird December 25th.
Wild.
So you have Eagles, Ravens, Chiefs in a row. Oh, and guess what? After you play the Chiefs, you have the Bengals to close out the season. So that's 4 in a row. Oh, and guess what? That December 15th Eagles game, the week before that, you play the Browns, who went to the playoffs last year. Oh, and guess what? Before that Browns game, you play the Bengals. Oh, and guess what? Before that Bengals game, you play the Browns, and then you play the Ravens before that. So you literally, this team is closing the season with 8 straight games against teams that finished above 500. 6 of those 8 games come against teams that made the playoffs, and the 2 games that don't come from teams that went to the playoffs are both against the Bengals, who should be good. So it's just like, that is just an insane 8-game stretch that I don't know what the NFL was thinking. And it really, with the 3 games in 10 days against 3 of the top teams in the NFL, is just mind-blowing.
And we heard, we talked about this in Slack, but Andrew Filipponi of 93.7 The Fan, I think, in Pittsburgh, tweeted that he'd been told that part of the holdup on the schedule release was actually, Sully, Steelers being like, yo, 3 games in 10 days around Christmas amid this 8-game stretch. I mean, this is not that any franchise gets preferential treatment, but when you they show the team.
I think it was the opponent, like specifically having to play at Baltimore and then turn around and play Kansas City, because somebody was going to. The Chiefs,
Philly, Baltimore, Kansas City is crazy. Yeah.
Yeah, you look at this and you say, what did somebody do to somebody in the league office? But Will, you had the kind of the quote in the Slack chat earlier that this is the type of swing that makes you want to fade or hammer the under on a team, as opposed to optimistically go with the over in terms of their season win totals. This is not good for the Pittsburgh Steelers. And again, we talk a lot about, whether it's Russell Wilson or Justin Fields. I don't know. It might not matter with this schedule, the way it's panned out.
And in comparison, the Chiefs obviously also have to play 3 games in 10 days. They are playing the Browns, Texans, and Steelers for their 3 and 10. So it's not like they got
all 3 playoff teams
much easier. And then the Texans, who are also playing on Christmas, have 3 games in 10 days, and they are playing the Dolphins, Chiefs, and Ravens. However, which is a brutal stretch, but they got a week 14 bye. So they get a bye going into that kind of 3-10 is a huge advantage. And then obviously the Ravens will also be playing 3 games in 10 days, and their 3 games in 10 days are against the Giants, Steelers, and Texans. So I'd say that the Ravens have it the easiest. The Texans get the bye in there, so they're fine. And then Chiefs and Steelers both got it.
I mean, the bottom line is when you jam multiple games on Christmas Day on a Wednesday because you want to get extra cash from Netflix, you end up forcing teams to play 3 NFL games in 10 days, which is just outrageous. And if you start seeing injuries into these teams, it's one like we've seen TJ Watt hurt for stretches. Like if Lamar Jackson were, they're just stars. If they're missing, it's a huge problem for the league. And you clearly don't want injury, but my goodness, man, guys, what are we doing with these schedules? Breech, any other tough stretches that stand out, or even maybe easy stretches?
Well, I'll bring up a tough stretch real quick, of course, with the Bengals, who look, for their toughest games, I think you guys would probably agree. Steelers, they play the Steelers twice. They play the Cowboys. They play the Chiefs. Those aren't the 4 toughest. All 4 of those teams will get at least a 10-day break before they play the Bengals. So your toughest games, and those teams get a ton of rest. The Chiefs play in the Thursday opener, then they play the Bengals in week 2. The Steelers get a Thursday game in November against the Browns, then turn around and play the Bengals on a Sunday, so long break. Guess who the Steelers play after their Christmas game on Wednesday? The Bengals in week 18, so they get an 11-day break before that one. And then the Bengals play the Cowboys after the Cowboys play on Thanksgiving. So the Cowboys play the Thursday of Thanksgiving, and then that game, the week 14 game, is on Monday night. So the Cowboys get an 11-day break before that one. So that one, I'm sure the Bengals probably are not thrilled that all these teams got a bunch of extra rest. So
that feels like something that you came across in like a Bengals group chat with your family, where they're like, "Have you seen this?" You're like, "Yes, I have seen this. It's ridiculous." Or you send it to the group chat because you're obviously studying the schedule. What about easy stretches that pop out?
Well, there's a couple easy ones. I would say, oh man, the Dolphins. So the Dolphins, I would not wish their schedule on anyone, not easy at all. But the start of their schedule, they get 4 of their first 5 games against teams that did not make the playoffs last year. So they feel like a team that could start hot, and they're going to need to start hot because there's a span where they go over 40 days, only playing 1 game at home. But you look at what they do, and they open in Jacksonville, very winnable game. Then they have the Seahawks, Titans, and Patriots. Those are the 4 teams that did make the playoffs. And then the 5th game is against the Bills, not a gimme. So they could get off to a hot start. We've seen Mike McDaniel teams get off to a hot start too, so that makes sense. It's like if you're thinking Survivor, or you think there's a best ball tournament where it's eliminator, where after each week like 10 out of 12 teams make it. Maybe do Dolphin stacks early on to advance far enough to cash.
Well, I'll throw one. Aren't they stacked home games early on?
Yeah, they have 3 of their first 4 at home too.
Yeah.
Hot.
So that is definitely, they got to get hot early. Then the Jets. So obviously you look at the Jets, you're like, oh my God, they have to play San Francisco in San Francisco to start the season. That's going to be a rough game. But then after that, week 2, they play the Titans. Week 3, the Patriots. Week 4, Broncos. Week 5, Vikings. So you're looking at 2 rookie quarterbacks, 3 rookie, Will Levis, and then possibly 3 straight rookie quarterbacks, which I think if you're the Jets, and as long as Aaron Rodgers stays healthy, that's a stretch where you absolutely think you're going to win all 4 of those games. You don't think Drake May or Bo Nix or J.J. McCarthy is going to beat you, and you have to think your defense is good enough to shut down Will Levis. So I feel like they got the brutal opener, but they're probably pretty thrilled with how their next 4 games played out.
The only thing about the Jets, and you're right, that's totally true. They should be able to win all of those games. They do have a lot of primetime games, tied for the most, and they have, I think it's 7 standalone games when you include, I think it's like a early morning game, the London game. Yeah, exactly. And they do have 2 Sunday to Thursdays, if I'm not mistaken, as well. So there is, a little bit of pressure to be put on them as well.
That's true. I don't really like the Sunday to Thursday thing, I don't really view that as a setback because the other team is also going to Sunday to Thursday. So it's kind of even, kind of like, the Steelers part of the 3 games in 10 days. Their opponent also has to do that. But the Steelers have 8 straight brutal games, which no one else does. So that's the unfair part.
For sure.
But yeah, I mean, short games, definitely when you have a 40-year-old quarterback, something you worry about.
All right. There's nothing more fun than NFL schedule release videos. Credit to the NFL social media teams. They've managed to make these so awesome. And I don't know how, I mean, I guess it's millennials because I couldn't come up with these ideas. And they keep coming up with better ideas each year. We may have hit like an apex, but I want to give my pick for best schedule release video goes to the Tennessee Titans. They did this incredible thing, and I would want to say, Breech, I'm not saying that before the Titans did this that you and I went down onto Broadway and asked bachelorette parties about the NFL draft in 2019. Just kidding. We did exactly that.
Still a career highlight, Brinson. Career highlight.
Absolutely. We were ripping shots on a bachelorette party. I was dancing and doing videos out there. I looked like an idiot. Still concussed from my scooter fall. I really need to file a workers' comp claim with CBS. There's multiple concussions suffered in the line of work. Anywho, the Titans went on the street and showed random people logos and said, all right, this is week 1. Like, what do you think? Give me 3 words. And they got a bunch of insane answers. This year, they doubled down on it by bringing in one of the people from last year's video. I think it was like Mrs. Raging Cat or whatever. That's what she guessed when she saw the Jaguars logo. She did the interviews, and it wasn't as funny, but it was up there because it's unbelievable how many people love the NFL and how many people just have no freaking clue. Like they ask a couple, they show the Colts logo. They're like, Dak Prescott and the Cowboys, obviously. And it's like, nope. And then one guy knows, he asks him, shows him the Lions. He's like, that guy goes for it up fourth down all the time. They show the Patriots logo, like, they say, like, won a bunch of Tom Brady. She's like, then what happened? He's like, and it's da da da. Great video. My number 1 again for the 2nd year in a row. What say you, Sully?
I didn't get to watch all of them, so I reserve the right to change my mind.
I haven't either.
We're running at 1,000,000 miles an hour, but I did like the Ravens utilizing Stavros, the comedian. I find him hilarious, and he was basically the only guy that could possibly unveil their schedule after his famous TikToks last year. So I like that one.
You know what? The only 2 videos I watched because we had this. I was writing the whole time from schedule release until the podcast started. But of course, the 2 I had to watch are top 2 every year. Brent's already mentioned one of them, the Titans. You have to put them on there. The Los Angeles Chargers. They blow my mind every year because they do something and they put all these subtle things in there. And if you watch their video this year, like the Harrison Butker controversy has been going on for 48 hours and the Chargers got him in the video cooking in the kitchen. I mean,
it's amazing.
Who are these? How do they think this fast? These people are genius.
You can tell that their social media team lives in a state where weed is legal. Like you can tell that when you watch their videos. Like the anime one they did a few years ago. I mean, it's unbelievable.
And it's like their social media team went up to owner Dean Spanos, was just like, so let's be clear, we cannot be fired for anything, right? Because we've got some wild ideas that we're going to put in these videos. And he's like, no, your social media. No one, you guys just keep getting those retweets and no one cares. And here we are again talking about the Chargers social media video.
Harry gave a shout out to the Falcons alternate NFL alt streets NFL street style video. I actually haven't seen that one. I really don't know. Yeah, I gotta check that one out. I mean, it is true. Like I wrote 2,000 words on revenge games. Like really, I needed 2,000 words for revenge games. But I can't help myself. I'm loquacious. And the other one the other 2, I saw the the Dolphins with Tyreek Hill and was it Devin Achane or was it Waddle? I couldn't see it. I saw it like pop on ESPN, but it was basically the fastest release video ever. It's like Tyreek Hill typing and moving his mouse really, really quickly. Moster, thank you. I didn't see it. I heard it and saw the replay. But that one looked pretty funny. And then obviously, if you're going to do something with comic books as the Jaguars did with an X-Men 97 spoof, I want to get in on that. So those 2 definitely on the list to check out as well.
And real quick, looking at my notes of things I want to mention, the Christmas kickoff times, not thrilled with the 1 p.m., 4:30 p.m. starts. I thought 4:30 and 8 like they did. I just thought that would have made more sense because
1 p.m. Christmas.
If you live in the Pacific time zone, like that's still present opening hour. 10 a.m. You don't want to mess with that, or even Mountain Time. It just seems like, look, I'm all about Christmas football. I will watch all the Christmas football they will throw at me. It just seems that like my family is open presents and brunch. So we just, after the morning's over,
Same.
You're good to go watching football, and just like don't encroach on the present opening time. But I guess my understanding is that they made it earlier in the day so that the games would be available in Europe because they're on Netflix.
That is a good point. I also believe, now I could be wrong with this. I don't have the schedule of the press release in front of me. In 3 years, so Netflix bought 2024, 2025, and 2026.
Yes.
In 2026, does Netflix get all 3 games?
Netflix is guaranteed 1 Christmas game per year after the season. And it could be more, but right now it's at least 1.
I sort of wonder if the time slots aren't designed to allow Amazon Prime to get the Thursday game in 2026 on Christmas night, or at least leave it open where it's like you set these time slots, because the production stuff, the Europe stuff makes a lot of sense too. I assumed it was because Amazon was getting the late game on Thursday night in 2026, but maybe not.
Whatever, I'll be watching.
It's a whole new world. And it's we got the 2024 schedule set. I mean, man,
I'm going to go memorize it. I'm going to memorize all 101 CBS games as soon as we're done.
That's impressive that you know that or read that from a press release. Great job, Breech. All right. Awesome job on the schedule release podcast. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Again, I should note that with the calendar NFL calendar quieting down, we're going to take a break from the podcast for a little while. Don't unsubscribe. We'll have updates in the near future about the plans for the pod. Make sure to follow us on Twitter. Subscribe to the newsletter. Link in the description. And watching us on CBS Sports HQ in the meantime. If you have complaints, tweet at me, and I will CC every producer and anyone in charge of that happening, and let me know. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. For Sully, for Breech, I'm Brinson. We'll see you guys later.